Bird flight is magical. Every cell is engineered to fly. It inspired us to invent the airplane, and it inspired me to become both an engineer and a biologist. Remarkably, we don't fully understand how a bird lifts its own body weight from the ground. There's so many things that we don't understand that well, but even this simple question is really complicated. Mythbusters even spent a TV show on this. The question is, if you have a truck full of birds and you have to cross this old bridge, will it help to make the birds fly inside? Mythbusters told us the weight of the truck will remain the same. But in truth, scientists don't really know for sure. Actually, it's really difficult to answer this question. If you think about animal flight, and just in general, just look at this fly. You might think this is not possible, right? And it's not. But according to the theory of aircraft, this fly cannot even lift its own body weight from the ground. It was actually, till 20 years ago, we didn't fully understand this, but 20 years ago, Charlie Ellington and his lab discovered that insect wings never stall. So this is really special. Because of this, they can actually generate a lot of extra lift. And it makes things possible like this. A fly making a somersault during takeoff. So how much lift can they generate? Well, 16 years ago, Michael Dickinson and his lab developed this gigantic robotic fly to measure these forces. It's quite remarkable, and because it flies in oil, it really simulates the flow around the fly. And I was fortunate enough that during a visit, I was allowed to play with his fantastic robot. And what I did with this robot is simulate the flow around different types of animals, starting at the scale of a fruit fly, to a house fly, to a hummingbird. And it turns out that all these flapping animal wings don't stall. And this principle, the fact that it works from small to big, helped me guide this design made by undergraduate students. It's a flapping micro-air vehicle that can take off and land like an insect. And the magic behind this is actually the flapping wings, because the actuators we're using to control it are very slow and powerless. They're actually very unimpressive. But because of the flapping wings and how the aerodynamics works, this vehicle can fly very well. So, and it's supposed to be scalable, right? So as soon as we demonstrated this at a conference, Japanese scientists scaled it down to the first insect-scale flapping robot. And then a hobbyist in Japan actually built a 60-millimeter version that really flies with a remote control. And then there was this hobbyist on the internet, Brian, a student, and he built an even lighter version of just 0.9 gram, and he still has the record. It's just for a few $100s, but it's the smallest flapping vehicle on the planet that can fly wireless. So this principle of avoiding stall works for both big and small vehicles. And you might think, oh wow, tiny flapping robots, that might be quite dangerous, and oh, maybe they can help us in some way, right? But actually, in truth, these small flapping winged robots struggle with things like turbulence and gusts. You can just simply turn on the air conditioning and they would be blown out of the sky. And that's why actually these tiny robots cannot help us as well, like in this case with Petty Officer Sean Beatty, who was using a helicopter to look for survivors in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So ideally next year or in the future when there's a hurricane and we worry, then we would have a better solution. I think a great solution would be if we all would have a helicopter view in our pockets, one that can fly anywhere. So, but the FAA is actually right. If you think about drones, and you've probably all seen them, you cannot fly them as easily in cities. For example, in the street canyon. There's turbulence, there's clutter, and it's actually very unsafe. But remarkably, a simple pigeon can fly there without any problem. Birds can perch anywhere in the city. Birds can fly very fast through forest where a drone cannot. And this photo of a swallow hovering in front of a door is fake. But this photo flying straight through the door opening is real. And it shows how remarkable birds really are. And if you think about how far a drone can fly, that's actually quite disappointing. But this bar-tailed godwith, a bird of 300 grams, can fly across the globe. It can actually fly from Alaska to New Zealand in one stretch of 11,700 kilometers. It does pass Hawaii, but doesn't take a break. It's truly incredible. Also, if you think about how long drones can fly, you probably think minutes, maybe an hour, but this swift never lands after it first leaves the nest for a whole year. And the way it does this is by catching insects in flight and scooping water on the wing. It even roosts up in the air, and in fact, it even mates in the air. Please don't try this at home. Of course, I wanted to figure out how this bird can be so aerodynamic and so effective. So I tested the wings of a swift from fully extended to swept back, and it turns out that fully extended wings really increase lift, whereas swept back wings greatly reduce drag. And this enables the swift to fly up to 60% further, 100% longer. It's a really effective way of flying by just shape-shifting the wing back and forth. And this principle is something I used to develop a new type of drone with the help of a team of undergraduate students who actually designed and built it. It has 4 carbon fiber feathers that ship-shaped together like this, and it's a plane of about 100 grams, and it has a camera on board. And this is a video showing how the feathers move together. And it actually flies. In fact, it can make a barrel roll with flimsy feathers because they support each other so well in flight. We tested this up to 100 kilometers per hour in a wind tunnel. Well, and the students had a lot of fun with it, and I think, although this drone is really fun and great, and it was inspiring to me, it's a very good prototype, especially if you consider this was developed by undergraduates. Please keep in mind that drones can still not fly as far, as long, or as high as a bird. We're not even close. So, but regardless, I think future drones will probably benefit from shape-shifting wings to greatly improve efficiency. So, and if we're thinking about capabilities of drones, it's quite remarkable. Like how high birds can fly. These bar-headed geese can fly over the Himalaya. And of course, I have to be a little bit fair here. We all think about geese as being a little bit fat and boring. And true, most geese are a little bit boring. Just look up there. These are the geese you know and the French love. But they are special too. Just carefully look what this bird was doing. It's flying inverted, with its neck twisted 180 degrees. It keeps its head perfectly level to keep its eyes horizontal. It's a flying camera platform. And this is the first high-speed video of the behavior made by volunteers helping my lab. And you might think it's real special, one bird. Well, there are other birds around there, and they do the exact same thing. Just watch. There goes another one. Because it's so easy for them. They like to show off. So it's behavior like this and video like this that inspire my students to think about vision. So a master's student of mine, Ashley Pete, actually looked into Hooper swans. What she noted is that the body of the bird actually moves a lot due to the flapping wings, but the head stays perfectly stable. And she analyzed videos, and that helped her to find sort of the secret. It turns out they can do this in a really simple way. The only thing they need to do is tune the stiffness of their neck and also the damping. It works a little bit like a car suspension. And in that way, they can get rid of most of the jitter and actually fly through small gusts. And only after that, it becomes more challenging and they need active control. So what we can learn from these birds is that our future drones would probably benefit a lot from stable vision to generate this helicopter view. So thinking about active adjustment, another graduate student of mine, Amanda Stowers, came up with a new idea. Basically, she was thinking about how can we make a wing that's flapping morph at the same time. And she was inspired by the wrist joint of a bird. She added a wrist joint in the wing, and what she discovered in the lab was that if this wing is flapping, she could actually hit it real hard with a steel rod, and it would just fold back and fold forward automatically. There is no motor, there is no sensor, there is no computation, and there's also actually no damage. So this is really nice because this is really due to the dynamics of a flapping wing. And this enables a drone with flapping wings to collide with something and simply fly beyond. All of this happens in about one wing beat. So it's really fast and it's really difficult to get something like this working actually with motors and with sensors. So the passive dynamics of morphing wings, flapping morphing wings, are very special. So I think future drones will greatly benefit from solutions like this to maneuver more robustly through areas where there's clutter and collision cannot be avoided, but it can be resolved. So, but having said all of this and shown these different solutions, I still haven't answered the question, how do birds lift weight? And in my lab, we actually work on this with a bunch of fantastic lab members, amongst which these parrotlets. These birds get unlimited healthy food, including broccoli and apple, but like you and me, they have a favorite snack. And this favorite snack enables us to train these birds. We only need to point our finger to a perch in the lab, and it will fly over. They fly over for a single millet seed. It's probably the cheapest thing at Stanford. Bird training requires precision. We reward every behavior we like, and we simply ignore everything else. And the result is remarkable. We trained this bird to fly with laser safety goggles. They were developed by my graduate student, Eric Gutierrez. He made them out of the glass of his own laser safety goggles. 3D printed them, painted them, and in this way he was able to measure the flow field around the birds and actually see how the bird is manipulating the air. And you could use this motion of the air to calculate the lift force. It's absolutely possible, but it's very difficult to do it precisely. So far, it's so difficult that we have not succeeded in doing that very precisely. And if you think about it, actually the question is not that complicated. All that we want to know is sort of like, okay, how is the lift supporting weight? That's something you can measure with a scale. Just put a bird on it, you have the weight, it's that simple. At some point, I was thinking actually, well, we could probably measure the lift if the bird is flying above the scale. And the reason why is because there's a higher pressure underneath the bird that the bird is generating, and it needs to, and that actually is part of the lift. But unfortunately, the bird is also generating a much lower pressure above the wing, and so we're missing some lift. This doesn't really work this way. But at some point, I realized, what? I can actually create a very large box in which I make the bird fly. I just train it to fly in a large box. And in this way, the air can both push down the box and suck down the box. And that's how I get the complete lift. And this is the first experiment that shows this for a parrotlet. And you can see that during the downstroke, it generates twice its body weight, but during the upstroke, it generates no lift. So during the upstroke, it's actually in free fall, and therefore it doesn't push down on the box. And if you now think back about this truck full of birds, so if you have a truck full of these birds and you train them to synchronize their upstroke, then you have about 25 milliseconds when the truck actually weighs much less. And during those 25 milliseconds, and keeping to the speed limit of a truck, you could actually cover a whopping 2 feet. So we can all agree with the Mythbusters that it's unpractical. But the essential thing here is that actually the weight of the truck does vary in time. And this is critical to our insight to how birds fly. So how does this work for some of the most magical birds on this planet? Hummingbirds. So based on earlier flow measurements, scientists think that hummingbirds actually don't generate much thrust when they flap their wings backwards. Basically, they rely very much on the downstroke, maybe a little bit less than the parrotlet, but very close to that. Well, my graduate student, Rivers Ingersoll, wanted to test this. So he developed a much more sensitive setup that was able to do this for hummingbirds, and he opened up his hummingbird spa with a fake flower and unlimited sugar water. And here you can see him train a hummingbird to fly inside his setup. Just freely flying, drinking nectar, flapping back and forth. This is a bird of 4.5 grams. It weighs almost nothing. To measure this, he had to measure deflections of about a nanometer, and doing this at 10,000 hertz to get this completely resolved. But by doing this, we could trade in sugar water for the secret of this bird. You can see that it generates almost as much lift during the upstroke as it does during the downstroke. It is very balanced. And because of this balance, the bird is very effective. And that's probably why it can hover so long. So hummingbirds are quite crazy. Like, just look at this high-speed video. When you slow down, you see new things. Here, this hummingbird is actually performing something that's called a wet dog shake. And this is the fastest vertebrate shake on the planet. And while it's doing it, it's actually falling outside of the sky, and a truck could cover a distance of 6 feet. So where is all of this going? Well, it's time to go back to the future. Actually, right now, I'm developing a wind tunnel at Stanford to fly birds and figure out why they fly so effectively. And what's exciting about this is that this is the first bird wind tunnel in a department where people focus on engineering. And this makes it something new possible. What we can do is we can not only look at how birds fly so well, but we can directly transfer that knowledge to making drones more safely and fly more effectively. And when you fly birds in a wind tunnel, you can see truly remarkable things. This is an example of some of the things I found in the past when I flew birds in a wind tunnel. These are lovebirds flocking together. But when you slow them down, you see that there's actually an aerial pecking order. This female lovebird is pushing a male lovebird down. So I can imagine that in the future we'll probably have as many drones as we have cell phones, and perhaps inspired by the flocking of birds, we'll be able to fly them more effectively together. It truly is an exciting time to invent drones of a feather by unlocking the magic of bird flight together. Thank you so much.